Right. So I wanted to cover a little bit about the fetch and the fetch all, the PDO statement fetch and fetch all. So what does PDO mean? You might have come across PDO, but not actually know what it means. Well, PDO simply means PHP data object. Why do we use that? Well, it's lean and it's in the consistent way to access the database. The PDO works with multiple databases. It allows you to work with Microsoft SQL. It allows you to work with Oracle. It allows you to work with MySQL. It also allows you to work with Postgres. It allows you to work with a vast number of databases without having to worry about the syntax. There's the data access layer, and it's object oriented. PHP offers data access abstraction layer, which means you can issue queries and fetch data using the same function regardless of which database you're using, as I mentioned earlier on. You don't have to worry about the syntax difference between databases that, if you switch from this database to database, you then have to change your functions. You don't have to worry about that. There's the other area is that there is also security. Hence, we use prepared statements to avoid hackers from injecting in our code to create the database. We have usability, excellent error handling. Then the main PDO classes are PDO statement, then PDO exception, which handles the errors raised by the PDO. Now, there's also the fetch options. Now, the fetch options, this include what options are at your disposal if you decide that you want to decide what structure of the data that you want to be returned. The normal one that are very common is the associated array, which are highlighted there. And the other one that is very common as well is the OBJ, which returns an object. So those are very, very common options that most people use. Though there's also other ones that you can research and see which one you prefer to use. So the question now is, to actually answer what's the main difference between the fetch and the fetch all. The difference between the fetch and the fetch all is that fetch method returns a single row from a result as an array or an object, whereas the fetch all method returns all the rows from the result as a result an array of arrays or an object. Now, this fetch all, it uses more memory since we are mapping the whole of the database into one array. I'll show you this in action. I have my database connection. The hosts, I've all declared them up there, which is inside the host variable, then the database name, it's in the database variable. Then I have my DCN. So if I come to the PDO function here, so we have the variable, then we declare the new PDO, which is the new instance. Then we then say PDO and pass it the parameters, which is the DCN that I've declared here, the username I have up there, and the password. Then after that, we set attributes. Now, when we set attribute, we are declaring the default structure of the data that we want returned. So we are saying, what is the structure of the data that we want returned? By default, I want it to always bring an object. However, you can still override this default later on. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. For now, then I have my query statement. So I have my statement here. Then I then say statement which I declared here, fetch all. So it's now fetching from the database, and then I want the results. I want it to print the structure of the result. So if I come to my PHP admin, if I show you this is the query, and if I say go, it will show you the names that are within this quick database. I just made it for learning purposes. It's called PDO tryout. I have two names of clients, Nashe and Obonga, and these are their last names and their emails and their phone and their location. So then if I come here, okay, let's do that and see. So I want to see the structure that will come through. There you go. So this is the structure that comes through from there. It's an array, and then within that array we have an object, and within there we have the first name, it's Mnashe, last name is Msimwa, client, then you have all this data. Then you move on to the next one. The next object is going to be the second client in this case. So it's returned for each client, it comes as an object. The other thing that I can then do with this is that I can comment this one out. I'm done using it. Then I comment this one. So then I can actually say, okay, the results that have come through, I want to for each object within the row, I want it to extract this information. Then I want it to present it like so. Then it in quote. Okay, I see. So I'm using the wrong syntax. Yeah, I'm using the wrong syntax. So it's still reading it as an object. So what I want actually now is to override this object and use it as an associative array. So to do that, I'm going to just override here quickly. Then I'll use the fetch. It was already giving me the option that I was looking for. I was not paying attention. That one. I want this option here. So then if I use that option, I've overridden. There you go. So now the default data that is coming through here using the PDO fetch object was an object, but then I override it here into an associative array. Then I present the data as I want to there. So here I'm using fetch all. Now I want to try and use fetch, not fetch all, just fetch. So let's uncomment that. Here I have a while loop. I don't need the result no more, this function. Or instead of preparing it up here and then just using a for each loop, I'm going to actually have a while loop. Then I'll inject the code inside the parentheses, which means I'll have the statement here, the query. I'll have it's all going to get stored in this variable. Then I'll fetch and I'll override it into associative array here. And then I want to echo the client last name. So here I'm only using fetch. I'm not using fetch all. And I'm using a while loop. Okay. If I have made an error somewhere. Let's see. Let's try that again. There you go. So then now it's coming. We just comment it out and it can do. So it's only taking the last name. Now I can actually change this to the first name. Then it gives me the first name. So I've used the fetch and fetch all. The main difference between the fetch and the fetch all is the speed at which the different how the speed at which they can query the database and how much memory they use. You tend to see that the fetch, it uses less memory. It's going to be much faster, whereas the fetch or uses more memory. So that's just a little bit about using the fetch and the fetch or and the advantages of using the PDO statement. I guess that's all.